Are you searching for the best in online black radio? Then go to blacktalkradionetwork.com, helping you filter through the noise. Real talk, black talk.
The internet is full of half-truths and all-out lies. We've all seen them, and many people on social media complaining about it. Here's your chance to show and prove. WorldAfropedia.com is a black-owned and operated encyclopedia. There are several thousand articles, but we need help. We can't uncover all the truth ourselves. So please, join us and become a writer, editor, or blogger for WorldAfropedia.com today. Every little bit counts. We owe it to the future generations to put the truth out there. Visit WorldAfropedia.com, the African-centered encyclopedia, a global database of African knowledge for the purpose of bringing about global African wisdom and understanding. WorldAfropedia.com.
Context of white supremacy. Gus T. Renegade in for another broadcast, hopefully to share constructive information on the system of white supremacy. Today's date, Sunday, August 9th, 2015. So I have been told. Thanks for everyone tuning into the program. I hope this will be a constructive investment of your Sunday evening, Sunday afternoon. I know we have folks who listen in all over the world. Thanks to our listeners tuning in from outside the states. I know folks always look forward to the opportunity to hear from Dr. Welsing, and we will move along briskly. Hopefully we'll get an opportunity for as many folks to dial in and get their questions as possible. I just want to make sure we get in quickly. We should be here next week. I know we've been doing one program per month that is on early, so the people that are outside the states will have an opportunity to call in, share their views. That program should be next Sunday. So that would be Sunday, August 16th, and it'll be way earlier than our normal time, 12 noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Again, this is to give an opportunity for people who normally can't participate in our evening programs. You can call in, share your views on racism. Love to hear from you, especially our folks who listen in who are outside the United States. Next Sunday, we'll be here Sunday morning, 12 noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. That said, our guest for today, we always are thrilled to have her on the program. I know a lot of folks. She played a huge role in helping them, us, me, become a little bit less confused about what is happening on this planet and just getting a better understanding of all the horrendous events people have been talking about this month. Watts, 1965, Katrina, 2005, Michael Brown last summer, and everything folks have been talking about this year to connect the dots, as she so often says. Our guest, she is the author of the ISIS Papers, Keys to the Colors. I know so many of our listeners really appreciate that text and reference it all the time as something that really helps solidify their grasp of what racism is, how it works. They've heard her numerous times on this program, have seen her in Hidden Colors. Just as I said, we are always super grateful for her being so generous with her time and expertise. This is her 29th time as a guest on our program, and hopefully we have appreciated all that she shared with us down through the years and the many hours that she has spoken with us. Joining us once again live from Washington, D.C., third generation physician, general and child psychiatrist, Dr. Frances Cress Welsing. Dr. Welsing, are you with us?
Yes, I am, and pleased to be with you again.
Pleasure is ours, and I can only emphasize for all of the folks who have heard you on this program and the many other programs that you've done over the years that we're just so grateful that you have taken good care of yourself so that you could dedicate so much of your time on this planet to teaching, educating about what racism is and how it works. So many things. I guess even before we get started, how are you doing this evening, Dr. Welsing?
I'm doing fine, thank you.
Awesome. Before I get to just some of the different things that we discussed, and it's been so many events happening in the news, I know I've heard you as well as Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. speak before about the labor, I believe 17 years of labor that you two invested in getting his code book published, and you talking about you saw his work and just said, man, this has got to be published, and I gotta help Mr. Fuller get this published. Can you share like some of the anecdotes? What took so long in getting the book published? What made it such a difficult task that it took that long to get published?
Well, let me say this. Mr. Fuller had been working on his manuscript from the mid-1950s during the Korean War, and I met him in 1967. And just after reading the book, I've said many times, I was in the course of my training in general psychiatry and child psychiatry, I was looking, as a psychiatrist, I was looking for what's making black people mentally ill. That was not a focus of attention in the training program, in the training programs that I was in, plural. It simply wasn't a focus on black people and their mental health, but as you were saying, I'm a third-generation black physician, and my orientation from my family was your education is to come back and help your community or return. No matter where you go, your responsibility is to help your community get well. So even though it wasn't a focus of attention in the training program I was in, I was looking for what made black people mentally ill. And there was always something about racism taking histories on black patients, even though you seeing white patients as well as black patients. But I was interested in the fact that there was, major aspects of racism in every black person's history. And I thought to myself, I needed to understand racism beyond what I thought I understood about it when I was an undergrad. I used to consider myself a Marxist when I was 16, 17 years old. And after you become a physician, and you really have to have clarity about helping people get well, and Marxism didn't help me at that point. So I was looking for, what's racism? What is racism? These are the concerns that were going on in my thinking. And in 1967 is when I met Neely Fuller. And he was talking, I met him after a Black Power Committee meeting. People were at somebody's apartment sitting on the floor eating African food, and I heard this gentleman on the other side of the room say racism is a system. And it was just like a light bulb going on in my head, because I'm looking for, as a psychiatrist, looking for answers. And I say, like they say, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And so there was Mr. Neely Fuller talking about racism as a system. So making a long story short, I started talking to him. We would, sit up and talk late into the evening about his ideas, and which I considered that they were really profound and that his work needed to be published. So having never been involved in anything like that before, you just go through trial and error, taking steps, thinking that the outcome is going to be what you want. But needless to say, spending a whole lot of money thinking this person is going to help, thinking that person is going to help, do this or do that in relationship to the book. And another friend of mine, he was a physician training in orthopedic surgery, Carl Hutchinson, and Dr. Hutchinson is now deceased. But he said, I will type Mr. Fuller's manuscript, which was a huge handwritten, precisely hand-printed manuscript. Dr. Hutchinson said, I will type it in between surgical cases, which is what he did. So that was another step. But just being determined, and you might think it's going to take a short period of time, it just ended up taking 17 years, 1967 to 1984, and when Mr. Fuller's book was finally published. So it was just being committed, or knowing that his work was critically important. I say that Neely Fuller's work and his understanding, you know, he said he was on a mountaintop in Japan during the Korean War as a soldier. And he had started thinking about what was going on in the United States, segregation, desegregation, and he said on that mountaintop, all that language that was going on in the States, it didn't make much sense, and he started thinking about a total system structure. And I say that his thinking is as important as Einstein coming up with his theory of relativity and the equations E equals mc squared. I mean, Mr. Fuller was not a college graduate or physician, but he was a profound thinker. And what he contributed, because if we just think about our history and think about Dr. W.E.B. Du Bois and his book, Soul of Black Folks, published in 1903, Dr. Du Bois said the problem of the 20th century is the question of the color line between the lighter and darker races. That was published in 1903. And so in 1954, almost like 50 years later, Neely Fuller is talking about racism, the color line, as a total system structure, a system encompassing all areas of people activity, economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war, and controlling thought, speech, and action. And so that's the problem of the 21st century, continues to be the problem of the color line, which is a system of racism, white supremacy. So then I was in the course of talking to Mr. Fuller, all the long discussions that we had, or plus Carl Hutchinson, sitting in my apartment in D.C., Washington, D.C., talking about this system and debating ideas. And just because I was a psychiatrist, I guess a question occurred in my mind. Well, if indeed what we have or what we're dealing with on planet Earth at this time is a total system of racism, white supremacy, I started raising the question in my own mind, just because I guess I was in training as a psychiatrist, is the why is the behavior what it is? You see, why is a critical question for solving problems. It's not just sufficient to say thus and so is a fact, or thus and so exists, or just like black people talking about another black man has been shot in Ferguson, or 9 black people were killed in Charleston, South Carolina. The question is, why does this keep happening? What is the causation? In medicine, we talk about etiology. What is the cause of something? And so I was raising the question, well, why would they do this? What would be the motivation? You see, one could say, well, white people hate black people. Well, that's not sufficient for science. It's just like it's not sufficient if a doctor is wondering about cancer. The doctor doesn't say, well, because cancer hates people or cancer hates a living organism. No, what is it and exactly why? What, delving deeper into the cause. And so that was when my contribution in my coming up with the Cress theory of color confrontation and racism, trying to see what would be the logical motivation. And so as a physician, what I came up with was that the motivation was related to the fact that the people who classify themselves as white and really looking at things that white people would say. And they would, number one, talk about black people being genetically inferior to white people. That was over and over and over and over and over again being said. And it's still being said. And so I looked at that and then thought about the fact that, see, if you stay in school long enough, and I'm an advocate of people spending a whole lot of time in school and learning. Learning is very, very important. And reading is very, very, very important. Reading is more important than watching TV. And so reading a lot and studying a lot, you begin to learn things other than things that other people necessarily are saying. And so I learned that white people were a tiny minority of the people on the planet, but they called themselves a majority. But they call other people minorities and call themselves a majority, but they are a tiny, tiny minority of the people on the planet. Fewer than 1/10 of the people on the planet have white skin. All the other people are skin-pigmented people, which is the human norm. So I thought about those two things, that as a white genetically superior, they are genetic recessive in terms of skin coloration. And if you put those two facts together, then I say, let's start with the 15th century, 1492, and Columbus started voyages of Europeans, white people coming out of Europe, and beginning to circumnavigate the planet, realizing that everywhere they landed, it was colored people. And if the men had sexual relations with the women and waited around 9 months, they realized that all of the children ended up looking like the parents, and that the white would disappear. And so it just occurred to me, I actually was standing in my kitchen, cooking, doing dishes. And when you put a question in your mind, in the back of your brain computer, and you're serious about the answer, your brain will work on developing, helping you find the answers to the questions that you have. And, you might have to do research, you may have to talk to other people, but you are in search of something specific, which is no different than if a person is in a house on fire and you are using your brain, how do I get out of here? Or what do I need to do in order to survive? And so your brain goes to work, try this, do this, try this next, do this next, that kind of thing. And so I realized that the white people, consciously and or subconsciously, thought that the only way that they could genetically survive as white people on a planet where the vast majority of people are people of color. So that's what white skin making a decision consciously and or subconsciously that on this particular planet, third planet from the sun, where whites are a tiny minority, that for them to survive, they have to dominate people of color. And the people that have the most skin pigmentation Everybody who has colored skin is the result like pigment.
Dr. Welsing, your line is breaking up a little bit. I'm not sure what's causing the disruption.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. You're coming through clear, but it was breaking up a little bit before. I was having trouble when you were talking about the pigmentation in terms of that being why white people are doing this. It started breaking up a little bit.
Okay, I don't know. Maybe I was touching the line. Okay.
I can hear you now. All righty. You sound crystal clear right now. Hopefully that'll resolve things, Dr. Welsing.
Okay.
Outstanding. Apologies for that. I know, as I said, it started to break up just when you were getting into the lack of pigmentation in terms of that motivating why white people practice racism. Did you want to add anything more to that?
Well, okay, because the genetic ability to do is a genetically dominant, and the inability genetic recessive trait. And so dominance will always overcome being recessive. And if anyone doesn't understand, just think about President Barack Obama. His mother was genetically dominant. So putting the recessive together with a dominant, the only color that the president, he would not come out being a white offspring. He would be a colored offspring because of the dominance of the pigment-producing melanin genes. And so just magnify that. In other words, I suggest people think about in this area of the world, if after formal slavery, when President Abraham Lincoln emancipated the slaves, if all of the enslaved African people, black-skinned people, if they were allowed to be equal citizens, and all the black no in white here, there wouldn't be any white, it'd be colored. And so that's what the black genetic dominance, this is not Frances school genetics, this is just formal Greater genetics. And so this is the answer to racism, that the answer has to do with genetic inventing white genetic annihilation on planet Earth. And this can bring us and say that should be a turning point for black people, because I'm the only psychiatrist in the United States who's been talking about racism for the last 40 years. Talking about this problem and focusing on this problem for the last 40 plus years. But Dylan Storm Roof, the white murderer who went into the church in Charleston, South Carolina, killing 9 black people, 6 black women and 1 black man, killing the minister who was also a state senator. All of these black people were killed. And Mr. Roof not only killed these people, he went into the church, sat with black people as a white male, sat with the black people, prayed with them, talked with them, and then pulled out a gun and killed them. But he had written a manifesto prior to doing this. And he also stated to them, I have to kill you because you are black. I also have to kill you because black men rape white women. I have to do this. And so this is just such clarity with what I have been saying for the last 40 years, so to speak. He laid it out absolutely clearly. And the police officers who arrested him didn't beat him up. As a matter of fact, they took him to get a hamburger, almost in effect saying, "Son, job well done." And so this should be a turning point. I just attended the medical convention, the National Medical Association, which is the organization of black physicians in the United States. And many of the people, because I've presented all of my papers at that organization, beginning with the Cress theory of color confrontation and racism, white supremacy. I presented that for the first time in 1970 at the annual convention. And so many of the physicians were saying to me, this is what you have been trying to tell us for the last 40 years. That this is exactly what you have been trying to help us understand. And Dylan Storm Roof laid it out. Exactly what I have been saying. I didn't need him to give me proof of what I was saying. It just happens that he did. Just like some time ago, I talked to Tom Metzger, who's one of the white supremacists, white separatists in this area of the world, and I asked him, I said, Mr. Metzger, tell me, what percentage of people who classify themselves as white are fearful of white genetic annihilation? And he was very polite. He said, Dr. Welsing, nearly all of them. But they are afraid or ashamed to admit it. And I told him that was precisely what I thought. So it just so happens that all of these years later, Dylan Storm Roof came out and killed the black people in the church. And if that's not a wake-up call for black people, then we're lost as a people. But that incident stayed on the news, for about, a week or 10 days. And now it's as though it never happened in terms of news reportage. And the media went straight, I can certainly speak for Fox and CNN, backing up what Mr. Root said by bringing up the case of Bill Cosby and the fact that he's supposed to have raped some 40 white women, or one of the tabloids said 90. So this is, and that's the war cry, just like it was a war cry for Mr. Dillon in South Carolina. Black men, the crime that black men want to have sexual contact with white females or rape white females is the cry about the fear of white genetic annihilation and the determination for white genetic survival. And so it's all come together for those people who want to look at reality and deal with reality. That we had this composite event in Charleston, South Carolina, and interestingly, Charleston, South Carolina was a slave port. Charleston, South Carolina, in the Emmanuel AME Church was a church where Denmark Vesey, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
All of those events, and I say it's almost like a cosmic gift to black people. Do you see, like, wake up, black people. if you have any level of respect for yourself, for yourselves, wake up and pay attention. It's all laid out in capital letters for you to look at. And so that brings us to where we are at this point. The paper that I was going to give at the medical convention in Detroit was the massacre at Charleston, South Carolina, as vindication for the work of Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, because all of the elements are there. The whole discussion, as I said, about black men with white women is the key about the fear of white genetic annihilation, which is why some decades ago black men would be lynched and castrated if they thought about thinking about looking at a white woman or saying something to a white woman, any contact. Now, many people are not able to see that we now have the highest incidence of white women involving themselves with black men, the highest incidence in this area of the world in the history of the United States of America. And many people, because they are blind to or do not understand the system structure of racism, white supremacy, they don't see the relationship between that high incidence of white women selecting to be with black men. They don't see that as having any relationship to the large numbers of black men that are being shot and killed. And I maintain, looking at the total system dynamic, that there is a relationship between what black people are calling police brutality. The police are not people who are operating on their own. They are operating within the framework of a system, and the system instructs them just as though the system instructs bank people who run banks not to give loans to black people, or people who sell houses to give black people high interest rates, higher than they give white people, or just as the system controls disparate sentencing and the mistreatment of blacks in the prison situation, just as the system controls the high levels of black unemployment. So it's like in Nazi Germany, the Semites of the Jewish religion had been kept in ghettos in Europe. And there was a period in which they were emancipated in the mid-19th century. And so then they could have more freedom, just like we were emancipated and had, on the surface, more freedom. But Jewish men started marrying German women. And see, Adolf Hitler came along, and Hitler said that he was not concerned about the religion of the Jewish people. He was going to kill them because they were not white. And see, black people may look at Semites of the Jewish religion and say, well, these are white people. But white people who are concerned about their genetic survival, see, the word Semite means the same as the word mulatto. It means mixed race. And so if you look at the part of the world where the Jewish religion came from, it came from people of color. And so you can have, just like you have with black people, you can have miscegenation, and then you can have determination on the part of segments of the black population that they want to maintain a lighter color. And so then they have a color survival code, or don't marry anybody darker than yourself, or for the women to have sex with white men so that their offspring will be lighter. These are all steps that people of color have taken to try to make things easier for themselves under white supremacy domination. So, but Adolf Hitler said that I'm killing you because you are not white. And they were concerned about bringing non-white genetic material, even in small quantities, into a white population, because eventually that would begin to color the population. So you have that same phenomenon going on right now in Europe, and where the Europeans talk about Islamization, but the people of the Islamic religion who are flooding into Europe are people of color. And the concerns that the people who classify themselves as white across Europe are concerned about white genetic survival. And so they're doing various and sundry things to control the immigration, such as allowing people to drown who are trying to get to a secure place where they can work and hopefully be better off than they are on the continent of Africa.
Context of white supremacy. Again, our guest, Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, third-generation physician, general, and child psychiatrist. Folks have questions you would like to ask, feel free to chime in. The number to dial is 760-569-7676. The code is 564-943 pound. Press star 6 if you would like to participate. Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, thorough examination, great points made, in particular in terms of the distraction and kind of moving us away from what happened with Charleston, South Carolina, and almost saying, hey, we took down the Confederate flag, everything should be good now. Back to Bill Cosby and how many white women he raped. There were some non-white females that they threw in as well, but certainly I think the majority of the alleged victims that I've seen, they have been white women. I think also what's been given a lot of attention over the last maybe 30 days, at least since the time that you spoke with us the day after the shooting in Charleston, South Carolina, this just rash of these peculiar deaths. A lot of them have been alleged to be suicides, but just a lot of these peculiar deaths. I think the most prominent one being Sandra Bland down in the Texas area, but we also had Kendra Darnell Chapman, who was a very young 18-year-old black female who also allegedly died in police custody as a result of suicide, and this was a day after Sandra Bland. Kendra Darnell Chapman, she was in Alabama. They had a different black female, Ralkina Jones. She was a little bit older, in her 30s. They also said that she died by suicide, and there have been some others as well, even though they were not reported to be suicides, and them saying, well, oh, this black person had a medical condition of some sort, or we don't know what happened, but all of these strange alleged suicides. You are, again, general and child psychiatrist. Do you think that any of this seems logical, any of this seems feasible, that a black person under these sort of circumstances, and in a such short time period, some of these have been 3 days, some of them even shorter than that, do you think that's reasonable to think that this sort of strain could result in these black people committing suicide?
No, and I think that, see, what black people need to do is to, or let me say, the first order of business for black mental health is the recognition and realization that we are in a total system structure, local, national, global, of racism, white supremacy. We're not in a system of democracy, a system of capitalism. We are in a local, national, global system of racism, white supremacy that functions in economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. And so if we master that level of understanding that we've been told it's democracy, we have been told it's capitalism, we've been told it's socialism, we've been told many things, but the official language of the system of racism, white supremacy, is a lie, L-I-E. And so we have been told many things, but if we begin out of our respect for ourselves, see, if I have self-respect and something is causing me pain, I want to know what's causing me pain and what can I do about it. And so the first order of business for us as black people is to understand that we are in a system structure of racism, white supremacy, which is the power equation of white power over relative non-white powerlessness, for white genetic survival and to prevent white genetic annihilation. So any and all deaths that occur, directly or indirectly, to black people are being caused by the system structure of racism, white supremacy. So if black people simply say that, it's like Semites of the Jewish religion. If something happens to one of them or something happens to their synagogue, they say it's anti-Semitism. It's anti-Semitism, and nobody questions their pronouncement. Well, black people need to say all of these deaths, directly or indirectly, are related to racism, white supremacy, until proven otherwise. And that the system of racism, white supremacy, is going to be charged with these deaths. And that becomes the standing position of black people, just like the standing position. Election time is coming up. And if black people were to say to the Democratic Party, Hillary Clinton, if you want the black vote, you are going to have to acknowledge the existence of the system of racism, white supremacy. And if you don't acknowledge it, then you're not acknowledging black people's problems. And so don't ask us for your vote. Do you understand what I'm saying? So if black people take that position, in other words, white women are not, being jailed and found mysteriously hung and somebody saying they commit suicide. White men are not being shot at random in the street. No, this is something that is happening specifically to black people. And so for black people who are into the position of black self-respect, we'll label it for what it is. Like Neely Fuller says, self-respect is refusing to lie to yourself. And so for black people to cease lying to themselves, we may wish that the system of racism, white supremacy did not exist, but it does exist. And it is injuriously and harmful to us. It's 500 years of harm to us as a people. And so our self-respect necessitates that we recognize this and that we speak to it and that we not be lulled into emotionalism when the president comes and sings Amazing Grace in Charleston, South Carolina. That we are no longer interested in having just an emotional response to the harmful acts of terrorism and injustice which racism, white supremacy represents, that we are going to call it for what it is. And we're not going to be in a blind reaction to it because if we succeed in having a critical mass of black people who are simply engaged in self-respect and who will, without equivocation, speak to the fact, ever so calmly, that we are in a system of racism, white supremacy, which is a system for white genetic survival, and this is why all of these events are happening. And so what can black people do beyond that? Then what black people can begin to do is to make their behavior impeccable. See, the system of racism, white supremacy, has turned us into trash. And strategically so, because if you can have a people take themselves and demean themselves, then you will be forever their conquerors. And so this is what has happened. We're the only people on the planet who entertain ourselves calling ourselves niggers and bitches and hoes and gangsters and thugs and demeaning and degrading the act of self-reproduction, which is called sex. We're the only people on the planet, but it stands to reason because as black people, we have the greatest genetic potential to cause white genetic annihilation. So the people who need to be destroyed most are the people who have the greatest genetic power to cause white genetic annihilation. Simply having sex. And this is why in the system of racism, white supremacy, you learn if you're black, you're black, brown, stick around, yellow, mallow, white, right. That's the color code for white genetic survival. Which heretofore black people would learn it, or people of color learn that all over the world, regardless of the language they speak. They can speak Spanish, they can speak French, they can speak English. They all learn if you're black, you're black, brown, stick around, yellow, mellow, white, right. And the system of racism, white supremacy relates to the colors in just that fashion. So in reading Norm Stamper's book, Breaking Rank, Retired White Police Officers, he has this whole chapter on the police relationship to black men and talks about the larger they are and the darker they are, the more deadly the response of the police. And the police are simply the first line of defense for the system of racism, white supremacy. They are employees of the system. The training that they need is training in what racism, white supremacy is, which they already know, but that's what needs to be talked about. Because the black police officers are not going wild killing other black people, although you have black police officers participating with white police officers on occasion, and they're trying to keep their jobs, tragically. But it's no different than any black person on a job who is given an assignment to mistreat black people under them, and they do it, and they mistreat other black people to keep their jobs. Now, this is tragic, but this is the way the system of racism, white supremacy operates. It's just like on the former slave plantation. The slave master might select some black person to beat another black person and give the black person who was told to beat another black person an extra bit of fat back for their greens or extra cup of chitlins or something. That's your payment for hating each other, which is rewarded in the system of racism, white supremacy. And which is why, when I say that black people can use a velvet glove approach to countering racism. I mean, the whole idea of black people jumping out in the street and throwing rocks and breaking windows, that just means that the militarized police are just going to line black people up and capture them and put them in the concentration camps, which are already fitted out for that purpose. So tactically speaking, black people should know this is not the time to jump out in the street and acting wild. This is the time to understand specifically, scientifically, what racism, white supremacy is and speak to that. As opposed to, I don't know why that's happening.
Excellent point. Excellent point. I did just want to get one question in, because you said that, these suspicious deaths, we have all these black females that are dying in custody and black people being shot down and tased and raped and pillaged by enforcement officials and sometimes just regular white citizens. There was an article in the Washington Post, actually several articles in the Washington Post and other spots. There was a white teenager. His name was Zachary Hammond, and he was shot and killed, coincidentally, in South Carolina. He was at a drive-thru. He was with his white girlfriend. They said she had a certain amount of cannabis on her, and they shot him twice and killed him. And the article, it was titled, "An Unarmed White Teen Was Shot Dead by Police. His Family Asks, Where is the Outrage?" And they quoted one of his family members, and they said, they're called civil rights organizations. They're not called the black rights organizations. The color of his skin should not matter. White on white crime does not get the same impact as white on black crime. And they went on to complain and say that this case hasn't got very much attention because he's white and police mistreat white people too. And it's not just a race thing. This happens to all kinds of people, and we need to solve this problem and stop just race baiting. What would your response be?
Well, I would say that any unjust killing is a tragedy, but that should not take black people away from looking at the 500 years of history of racism, white supremacy as practiced against black people specifically. And black people should cease trying to put what is happening to black people and mix it up with gay, lesbian, transgender rights and the Hispanic rights and the poor people's rights. Black people need to have the self-respect to focus on what has been happening to them, which is quite different historically than what has happened to any other group. And it doesn't mean that if something unjust happens, yes, that's unjust. But that family's response. See, I say that the vast majority of people who classify themselves as white say they're not racist. And so I say, if you're not racist, then your job in a system structure of racism, white supremacy, is to get out front and stop the ones who are. Because you are given white status. But if you are not racist, then you will be out front, not marching with black people, out front in your own march, in your own determination. And since you have all the guns, as white people are allowed to have guns, if necessary, you go out and stop the white people who are practicing racism. You can call yourselves the John Brown Brigade. Certainly all the white people, males and females, who are sleeping with black people or so-called married to black people, they should be out on the front line leading the white people who are not racist against the white people who are. And the black people should stay in their houses, acknowledging and taking note and recording what is happening. But then it's black people's counter-racism revolutionary work to begin to change and transform what they think about themselves and what they think about one another. You know, and taking the guidelines laid out initially by Neely Fuller, where he says, stop name-calling one another. Stop gossiping about one another. Stop cursing one another. Stop squabbling with one another. Stop snitching on one another for reasons of personal gain. Stop being discourteous to one another. Stop being disrespectful to one another. Stop stealing from one another. Stop robbing one another. Stop fighting one another, and stop killing one another. See, if black people would say, now this is what, these are the exercises. I call these exercises in black mental health and black self-respect, in building the culture of counter-racism. See, because people of color, the majority of people on the planet, black people are the parent people. The parents of everybody on the planet. Everybody on the planet came from black people, including the mutation to albinism, which is what white skin is. You mix white with black, and you get all the colors in the middle. So if black people begin to practice how they relate to one another, because all the people of color on the planet have been taught to hate themselves and to wish they were white. And so they, under the system of racism and white supremacy, are willing to fight and kill each other. That's what's going on all over the continent of Africa. All the white people have to do is make up different group names and give weapons to different groups and say, well, now these are the terrorists and you fight these people. All of it is about creating chaos amongst non-white people so that they will always be in a state of chaos, confusion, starvation, homelessness, and so then white supremacy just sweeps in and takes the resources. So if black people would begin, see, we haven't been functioning with a narrative or any in-depth clarity as to what's going on. And I say that's why we greet each other by saying, hey, what's happening? Because we don't know what's going on. And we have been in the situation of sort of, like if you get on a train and you don't know where you're going. You don't know where you are and you don't know where you're going. You cannot talk about making progress just because you were sitting on that train chewing gum. See, you were doing something, but you didn't have clarity about where you were and where you're going. And until we start functioning with absolute and total clarity as victims of the war of racism and white supremacy. So the only thing that people who are victims of a war being waged against them is to engage in counter struggle. But that means that they have to understand exactly and specifically what they're struggling against. It's no different than playing football. That you cannot put a team on the football field against another team and one team not knowing what the game is all about. See, sometimes people who classify themselves as white have asked me, well, Dr. Welsing, you say that white people are a tiny minority. How can a tiny minority, 1/10 if not fewer, control the 9/10 of people of color? And I said, well, the first consideration is maybe the white people are smarter. But I don't think so. But if the white people have looked in significant depth of what their situation is, to the point where they realize that they're a tiny minority, they can be genetically annihilated, so they set up a game plan to prevent their genetic annihilation and then take control of the people of color. So you're educating them, you put all kinds of inappropriate thinking in their minds, and that's why Carter G. Woodson can talk about the miseducation of the Negro, because We have been lied to by the system of racism, white supremacy, and not taught the reality. So that's like putting a team on the football field and they think they're playing tennis, and so you give them tennis rackets. And then they wonder why they're not scoring and making touchdowns, because they don't have the right analysis of the situation that they are in. So that's where we are as black people. Tennis racket on the football field or tennis racket on the basketball court and wondering why we're not scoring. And I say that we are at a point in time where it is absolutely possible for us to fully understand what is going on and what needs to be done, so that if you have a critical mass of the non-white global majority who begin to understand exactly and precisely what racism, white supremacy is and how it works. This is what Neely Fuller says. If you do not understand white supremacy, racism, what it is and exactly how it works, everything you think you understand will only confuse you. I don't care how many degrees you have. That's my addition to that. And I've added to that list of stops or behavior is I've added stop making black children think. Well, no, ahead of that. Stop using and selling drugs to one another. Stop making black children think that as children they can be adequate mothers and fathers. Black people need to be 30 years old before they procreate. Because if you're 14 years old, 15 years old, 17 years old, and you try to take care of a child under the conditions of war, chances are you're going to fail. And those are all the throwaway children that are in foster care. Tragically, it's like we're in the same situation as when we were in formal slavery. In foster care is where the slave master would have a black male and a black female breeding and producing an offspring and then selling the offspring down to another plantation. And so slavery was a phase of racism, white supremacy, and so because it's called something different, we're supposed to have had emancipation from slavery, but this is not true. That's why you have slavery operating in the prison system. And so stop making black children think that as children they can be adequate mothers and fathers. If I could wave a magic wand, black people would not have sex until they got married, and they would not be able to get married till they're 30, and that they would be in school for 30 years learning reading and math, science, and maturing, learning skills so that they could take care of themselves and eventually take care of 2 offspring under the conditions of the war. So add to that, stop pretending that racism, white supremacy does not exist. Stop throwing down trash where black people live, work, and play. Black people should every black person should have a PhD in broom studies. So it's no trash, no chicken bones, no broken glass, no dirt and filth around where black people live, work, and play. Because if you have trash around you, it just means that somebody has convinced you that you are trash. And that's the objective of the system of racism, white supremacy. Program them through their music and entertainment and everything that happens to them to make them think that they're trash, because we incinerate trash.
Context of white supremacy. Before I get to some of the people that called in, you had said to make sure that I remind you, you had a concept, a way of thinking in terms of the black people, victims of white supremacy, thinking of us being in 4 different tribes or 4 different groups. Can you kind of break down those different groups and the significance in terms of how we think about scientifically opposing the system of white supremacy?
Well, go to the seminal work of Neely Fuller, Jr., where he says that there are 4 possible ways that a victim of racism, white supremacy can respond. The first thing, the victim, that's who we are, is people of color in the system of racism and white supremacy, but just deal with the area of the world that we're in right here. Submission to. That's the first response. That means that it's too much for me to think about. I don't want to think about racism. Just let me alone. Maybe just let me have my alcohol, my marijuana, my cocaine, whatever. Okay, submission to, that's number 1. Cooperation with. I know that there's racism, but I just want to get a good job, and that's all I want out of it. I want a good job and buy a car, get 2 boats and whatever. Then there's resistance to, meaning that the person is aware that racism, white supremacy is war being conducted against black people, and that they are going to use their life energy to respond to that. And as I said initially, that could mean just practicing those behaviors that reflect a conscious awareness that there is racism, white supremacy, that racism, white supremacy has destroyed the black behavior package, and that people are going to try to make impeccable their behavior just as individuals. They don't have to join an organization. They don't have to pay any dues. They just are transforming their behavior by transforming their understanding in their mind. And so resistance to, and then there's destruction of, and those are the people who actually have given their lives, and so they're already dead. The Malcolm X, the Martin Luther King, the Medgar Evers, all of those people where the system of racism was actually threatening their lives, and they knew that and understood it, and they kept pushing. So I said the other day when we were talking, we could look at those as 4 tribes, so we can just look at them and using the word tribes without any negative connotation. Those are just 4 groups of how individuals can think of themselves in responding to the system, because there's nobody that is outside of the system. See, some people will say, I'm doing my own thing. You're not doing your own thing if you are in a system of racism, white supremacy. Just like in Ferguson or any of the people who have been shot and killed. They might have been walking on the street thinking they were doing their own thing until an agent of racism, white supremacy caught up with them and decided that this was a day they were going to kill one. So nobody is exempt. And it's critically important that we understand that President Barack Obama is a victim. And the demeanment that he suffers each and every day, people calling him naive and stupid, he doesn't know what he's doing. He's one of the most brilliant people that's been in that office. But he's a black man, and they are not going to allow him to function. And they make that perfectly clear. We don't have to respect you. We don't have to call you president. We can call you Obama. But if we speak of Hillary Clinton, we're fast to say secretary, title first. But a black man in a system of white supremacy, We don't have to respect him, and we can invite a head of state from another country to come over and talk to us without your permission. And he can demean you. But if Donald Trump was president, he wouldn't be demeaned by any outside head of state because he's a white person. So even the president is demeaned and threatened. Drones flying over the White House property. People climbing over the fence. People allowed to get into the quarters. Death threats each and every day. So if you're classified as non-white, black, brown, red, or yellow, in a system of racism and white supremacy, then you are being victimized by it, whether you want to look at that reality or not. And in psychiatry, we say that people who do not face reality are crazy. They cannot be mentally stable because they're not looking and facing the reality. And years ago, I was taught in psychiatry, the role of the psychiatrist is to help people face reality even when they are afraid to do so. And so we can couple facing reality with having respect for ourselves as black people. And having respect will give us courage. But without respect, which is why the system works very, very hard, just look at some of the images in the commercials that they have of black people. See black men jumping up and down like monkeys, acting simple-minded and silly. Then you see a white man acting calm and like he's civilized. See, all of these images, they say a picture is worth 1,000 words. And to the extent that we do not understand, see, they had black people, black females participating in French fashion shows, you know, where the designers are putting out their products. And so then you see white women all dressed up in, whatever the fashion is supposed to be that some designer is making, and so they're walking with dignity, and then you have black women buck dancing in grass skirts. And we don't understand, or we don't understand scandal. We don't understand empire. White people are looking at it in the same Planet of the Apes. See, we don't even have an awareness to know when we are engaging in black image defamation. But the Semites of the Jewish religion learned. See, Adolf Hitler, when he decided, I'm killing everybody who's non-white, everybody that I classify as non-white is going in the oven. And so he got busy. He had a minister of propaganda, Joseph Goebbels, whose job it was to keep the media saturated with negative images of Semites of the Jewish religion and calling them pyramids, subhumans. And that's what is being done to us over here, but because we don't understand. Well, I'm making money. Right. See, this is why every person should, in the privacy of their own homes or in the privacy of their own brain computers, say, how much am I worth? How much am I worth as a human being? How much money would I demand for me to sell my soul to the devil? Sell my image to racism, white supremacy? how much will I ask them to pay me? Or how much would I accept being paid to demean and degrade myself? Producing an image that's going all over the world. And these images go all over the world so that when we are systematically destroyed, because we are in genocide status right now. See, any time the men of a people are being destroyed, then those people are being destroyed. You see, we're being sold, well, you don't need to worry about the men being destroyed. Women, you can start going with each other. The remaining men, they can go with each other in the prisons, but you will not be reproducing yourselves. But you can sign on if you don't understand. And this is not to demean somebody who says that they are gay or lesbian. No. See, the question that everybody should be raising is, how does that tampering with gender identity take place? Does it take place by chemical warfare? Does it take place by biological warfare? See, racism, white supremacy is white genetic survival by any and every means necessary. So, this discussion, my discussion is not about hating white people. It's just about becoming aware. It's like you sit down at a chessboard. The training is not to hate your opponent. If you sit down at the chessboard, what you want to do is learn the game of chess and become a chess master, so that every move that is made on the chessboard, you understand why that move is made, what are the consequences, and you're always thinking 5 moves ahead. That is, if self-respect is in place. And this is a reason why people really should think twice about, like I wrote a flyer that says, when you play with sex, then you will produce a criminal or a slave. Because when children are mistreated at birth, meaning that the people were playing, see, when people play with sex, the joke is on the offspring. And all you have to do is be a child psychiatrist to see the suffering of children when they're brought in the world and the people are not able and willing to take superb care of them. See, ready and willing and able. And just because a person is capable of having sex, it doesn't mean that they are ready, willing, and able to take care of a child for 25 years under the conditions of war, and to make certain that that child is well taken care of, taught values, taught the basic and fundamentals about self-respect, black history, so that that child will be able to function at a high level even when a societal structure is determined to try to destroy the child. But see, the child is destroyed, again, before the sperm meets the egg. Because if people do not understand the importance of sexual activity in producing the next generation, and what it takes and what is required to take care of the next generation. So this is not for people to feel bad. This discussion is for us to think about what we're doing under the conditions of war. And this is the importance of Charleston. Dylan, everybody should master the name. Dylan, D-Y-L-A-N-N, storm, roof. What is the information that he brought to black people? And he wasn't retarded. He wasn't mentally ill. He had signed on to be an operative in the system of racism, white supremacy. And his assignment was to kill black people. You see, but everybody who's responsible for black high levels of chronic black unemployment is killing black people. Every person responsible for not promoting in a just manner a black person on a job is killing black people. Everybody who signs on to gentrification, the removal of black people from the urban centers, is killing black people. So the question is, see, black people do a lot of praying and talking about being spiritual. Like none of us made this planet in the inhabitants, but the forces in the universe, you call it God or whatever, made black people the mothers and fathers of everybody on the planet. Made black people black. White supremacy has taught black people to demean and to degrade black as they were taught to worship white supremacy and worship a white image of God. But the real creative force in the universe was not made by white people. And so I feel that the creative force is saying, I made you black. And so you want to worship a white image of God, then don't call on me. I am the creative force. So don't call on me for any help until you can look in the mirror and respect your black self. Then your antenna will be in touch with mine. This is what I envision, the creative force in the universe saying to black people. You have let other people turn you against your image, meaning turn you against how I made you. And now you are worshiping that. And yet you want to call on me to help you. See, I say that self-respect is getting your antenna directed to the creative force in the universe. But if we don't respect ourselves, and the system of racism, white supremacy works 48 hours a day, grinding out every conceivable possible means for black people to demean and to degrade themselves. And so just becoming aware of that and deciding that's not going to happen to me, not because I'm so smart, but because I'm aware, now I'm consciously aware of the system structure and dynamic of racism, white supremacy. And I have made the decision that I am going to respect myself and other black people second to none. See, that's a choice, and that makes every single black person a leader. See, not depending on someone who is manipulated by the system of racism, white supremacy. But every black person, him or herself, can be a leader by understanding racism, white supremacy, and understanding what they need to do with their behavior making their behavior impeccable in relationship to self-respect and knowledge of racism, white supremacy. See, we need to step back and become aware. You know, what's the black brand? Since everybody's talking about brands, what's the black brand? What are black people? What's the image of black that black people are projecting to the world about who they are supposed to be? You see, are we supposed to be black males with their pants hanging down and black women walking around like they're almost naked? Is that the black brand of people who are in knowledge of their self-respect? See, these are things that we can sit down over coffee and talk to each other about. Who are we supposed to be? See, psychiatrists, child psychiatrists are aware that there are some parents who want to look hip, and so their children are having a party, and they want to go down in the basement and dance to the music and shake booty like they're children, not understanding that the children will have completely lost respect for them because they don't know how to behave as parents. They don't know how to behave as guides or people who have some understanding of values and what's going on, what's really going on in the world when black people are under the conditions of war. So these are things that, again, that we have to let ourselves think about and think of those. You know, everybody is not on board at the same time. And so I consider that I'm a person who tries to resist racism, white supremacy. I'm aware of it, and I try to think about, now, what is it that we need to do to push back? Because I value myself and I value the people that I am a member of. So I call myself resisting. I spend time talking on different radio programs when I can, because this is a part of attempting to resist the terrorism and the injustice of racism, white supremacy. That we don't have anything better to do. But at the same time, people arrive at what is it that I am supposed to be doing on this planet? Am I supposed to be demeaning and devaluing myself so that I actually am participating in upholding racism, white supremacy? Or am I supposed to be doing something else? But if I demean and devalue myself as a black person, I am upholding the system of racism, white supremacy, which necessitates the inferiorization and the devaluation of people of color for that system to survive. So I'm not just neutral. I'm either using my behavior to help dismantle racism, white supremacy, or I'm basically upholding it. See, and none of this is, I think that people should understand velvet glove resistance, because, people jumping out and talking about they're going to get a gun and do this and do that. You better believe racism, white supremacy is ready for that. That's what all those tanks that they pull out on the street and all the weapons that they have. They're just waiting. For black people to come that way.
Absolutely. I think we just played the news clip yesterday where it was a white male. Well, we played one clip where it was a white male where he had explosives and all this white supremacist material and what have you. There was a separate clip that I didn't play, but it was on CNN where this white man, he had thousands of bombs, munitions, firearms. Like, he passed away and they went through his garage and he had the stuff just stacked up in the garage, and they were just like, what is all of this for? And I think you just answered the question in terms of who that's for. We had a lot of people that called in. I wanted to get some of the people, if they had a question they wanted to get into. Dr. Welsing just wanted to share quick snippets, and she's mentioned Dylan Storm Roof so many times and saying that black people, victims of white supremacy, we should really study who this guy is. I've said before, you should check out the manifesto. I've read a few portions before, just a quick snippet before I hit the phone line. This is from the manifesto that has been attributed to him. It says, I think it's fitting to start off with the group I have, or actually, let me back it up and make sure I get the first sentence. I can say today that I am completely racially aware. I think it is fitting to start off with the group I have the most real-life experience with, and the group that is the biggest problem for Americans. I read that to be white people. Niggers. Skipping down a little bit, he says, even today, blacks are subconsciously viewed by white people as lower beings. They are held to a lower standard in general. This is why they are able to get away with things like obnoxious behavior in public, because it is expected of them. I will stop there, but that is kind of the early portion of the manifesto that has been attributed to Dylan Storm Roof. We will definitely, you should check it out. You can get it online, read the whole thing. It's he does not come across at all as though he is ignorant, stupid about racism, white supremacy. He comes across as very informed, and he was only 21. The person who called in from a block number, if you had a question for Dr. Welsing, you should be with us. Go right ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Gus, for the program today. Good evening to everyone. I am still learning. I have concluded that black people's problems are white people. Dr. Welsing, it is an honor to speak with you. I am always thrilled to hear your wisdom. You answered my questions in the context of your comments. I just do have two questions. Have you noticed the disturbing increase of showing white women as the mothers of black children in the media? And what is your analysis of this disturbing showcasing?
Let me address that one at a time. Yes. Do you see that there is a decided push? The pushes involve black men with white women and produce a colored offspring where the mother is white, so that the first breast in the mouth of the baby's black, one shade of black or another, but the white breast. And then the white mother tells that child who's colored, you are not black. You see, so that message is a lie, because a system of racism, white supremacy, is going to each and every day treat that child as a non-white child for the purpose of white genetic survival. And so that white mother is indicating to the child that she doesn't respect black, but the child will be conflicted about its identity. And so that child becomes a useful tool for the system. So they will have an individual who looks like they're black or colored or shade of black, whatever you want to say, but they will internally function as someone who consciously, subconsciously despises being black and wishes they were white. And so that is a particular, shall we call it, the hard drive in the computer. And so that person can be used when they become an adult person to function in behalf of a system of racism, white supremacy. But black people won't be able to say, you don't have any blacks on board. So I don't know if that answers your question, number one.
Yes. What is your analysis to the white people glamorizing transsexuals and gays in the media?
So I missed, what's the verb that you used?
What is your analysis to white people glamorizing transsexuals?
Glamorizing.
Right.
Well, see, I think that, in other words, people who classify themselves as white supremacy is not on the upswing, it's on the decline, whether the people who classify themselves as white are aware of it or not. And because at a subconscious level, it's like the more people of color indicate that they may have some level of respect for themselves on the planet, then it makes people who classify themselves as white subconsciously not like themselves. And so if you don't like yourself at a subconscious level, then you will go into a negation of your reproduction. So people who classify themselves as white, in a sense, are taking themselves out of here. But that doesn't mean that people of color can sit back and depend on them to genetically annihilate themselves through non-procreation. But the behavior, do you see, it is not talking negatively about a person who thinks that, I feel that I am a male who loves males or a female who loves females. I ought to raise a question, well, why? Is there something in the culture that is pushing me in this direction? That question is not raised. It's like just go with the flow. But the go with the flow is to take a population that's already a minority population. They are assisting themselves in no longer being on the planet.
Let me say that you are saving the lives of black people with your work. You are my Wonder Woman and my Shiro. I believe the Creator has given us the brilliant you and Mr. Neely Fuller to help us understand racism, white supremacy, what it is and how it works. And I thank the Creator for hearing you in my lifetime. Thank you, Dr. Welsing.
Thank you. Thank you.
Caller in Florida, did you have a question for Dr. Welsing? Caller in, wait a minute. I think he might have dropped out. Looks like we might have lost him. Okay. He calls back.
Greetings.
Oh, okay. See, good to hear you, sir.
That was just putting my phone in place so I can. Greetings, everyone. Greetings, Dr. Welsing. Greetings, Gus, and the listeners. Dr. Welsing, as a reaction to the system of racism, white supremacy, there is a lot of incorrect behavior that non-white people, especially non-white black people, have enacted and are enacting on each other through thought, speech, and action. Could you give us your analysis of that and what can we do collectively to change that behavior?
Give me an example of one behavior, let's say, that you see? Let me try to respond to that.
The anti-black name calling to be due to one another, murder, even from the standpoint, recently it's a lot of talk about abortions, and there are a lot of non-white black people who do abort the birth of their child or children, and I hope I answered your question on as far as examples.
Okay. Well, let me just deal with those three things, and let me deal with abortion. That you have people who classify themselves as white who are against abortion, and if that impacts a black person, then you have a baby that is maybe unwanted, and then you have a whole system of white supremacy that will further kick it around 365 days in a year until they get it in prison or they get it killed on the street.
Mm-hmm.
So I say that it's more humane, and please listen to me figuratively. See, this whole idea of bringing a baby in the world no matter what, I say it's more humane if somebody got huge knife and on the day of birth cut the baby in half than to have that baby suffer 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 12 months a year, 365 days a year, demeaned and degraded, called names, yanked around, abused, sexually abused. What's more humane? So, just getting on board and saying no abortions, and that is supposed to value life, when the life that comes. See, I say that the most critical thing that can happen to a human being is to have a child that is unwanted. It ain't mine. I don't want to take care of it. Get this little nigger away from me. So black people have to think. And this is why I say that to play with sex is to make a criminal or a slave. Or if people play with sex, the joke is on the offspring. So instead of just because some people are shouting no abortions, do some serious thinking as a black person about the situation that we are in as black people. And have a ruling, feel as strongly about don't play with sex. And why I say that if I could wave a magic wand, black people wouldn't be able to have sex until they were married, and they wouldn't be able to get married until they were in their 30s. And they would be going to school and learning and not trivializing the act of self-reproduction that makes you, have the same power as a creative force. So that's abortion. Murder. See, the system of racism, white supremacy, is actually a culture of necessary murder. For white genetic survival to take place on the planet, it has to be continuous killing of people of color. It has to be stockpiling guns, so that even within the white family and the white home, as they stockpile guns, ready to use the guns against black people, their children are growing up in that atmosphere. And so then one of the children decides they are distressed, unhappy, or whatever, and they just go to the gun closet or go to the gun store, which they can get a gun anytime they want to buy one, and go to a movie theater and shoot up people. Because killing is sanctioned. All you have to do is turn on the television. killing, all kind of killing of human beings, killing of people all over Africa, killing of people all over the Middle East, killing of people in Haiti, killing of people in Brazil, killing. So racism, white supremacy is a system and culture of necessary murder. And so that's why we see it, and that's why it's all over the internet, the videos, and everything that people look at. That's why I look at Turn On China Central, because you see a culture where the people are building and they're trying to solve the problems of human beings and, something constructive. Not death, and the devaluation of human life. And so name-calling, this is why Mr. Neely Fuller had initial list of 10 behaviors. Stop name-calling one another. See, so black people, individual black person says, I'm no longer calling a person by any name other than the name they wish to be called. Or, I'm not going to be a person who gossips or curses. So the person who decides they don't have to join an organization, they can be on their own. I mean, they can join an organization if they want, but they don't have to be distressed that the organization is not doing anything when they operating as an individual can say, I'm going to master an understanding of racism, white supremacy, and I'm going to be my own boot camp in terms of making impeccable my own behavior towards self-respect so that I become a unit just by me practicing respecting myself and valuing myself and valuing other black people. I'm making myself into a unit of counter-racism. You see, but I have to understand exactly and specifically what it is. You see, and so I share my definition because we have to have clarity about what we're talking about. I say racism, white supremacy is a local and global power system and dynamic, structured and maintained by persons who classify themselves as white, whether consciously or subconsciously determined, which consist of patterns of perception, logic, symbol formation, thought, speech, action, and emotional response, as conducted simultaneously in all areas of people activity, economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war, for the ultimate purpose of white genetic survival and to prevent white genetic annihilation on planet Earth, a planet upon which the vast and overwhelming majority of people are classified as non-white, meaning black, brown, red, and yellow, white-skinned people, and all of the non-white people are genetically dominant in terms of skin coloration compared to the genetically recessive white-skinned people. See, I'm waiting for some rapper to put that definition in a rap, and so that every young black person gets that solidly in their head, as opposed to some trash. I mean, just imagine somebody putting a rap out there, you see, must produce justice. Must produce justice. Must counter racism. All that's in the rap. Stop name-calling one another. Stop fighting one another. Stop killing one another. Stop being discourteous and stop being disrespectful to one another. See, all black people ought to be wrapping that in their heads and definition until there's a critical mass of clarity about what direction we are supposed to be moving in, and that we are going to replace the system of terrorism and injustice with a system of justice. That means nobody is mistreated, nobody is allowed to be mistreated, and those who need the most help get the most help. That's justice. And so the effort is to transform. See, just think, we're the parent people of the planet, and we ought to see ourselves on mission, on assignment, cosmic assignment, to replace racism, white supremacy with justice on this planet. And the parent people, as individual people, are going to lead the way and see that this is accomplished, that this is their cosmic mission. You know, just like in a household, the parents have to be responsible for what is going on in the house. So I hope that answers your question.
But I just muted our call in Florida because I was picking up some background noise. But thank you kindly, retired firefighter. The person that dialed in, last four digits, 4231. 4231. Did you have a question for Dr. Welsing? You should be with us.
Yes. Can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
All right. Just appreciate the opportunity to ask a question on the platform. And my question would be, what is the significance in the victim's analyzation of the system of racism, white supremacy, and the racist suspects thereof? Why is there the religion part of the 9 areas, and what relevance does it have to the victims of racism, white supremacy, if anything? Like, what purpose does it serve even being included? Why was it included?
Well, probably, in other words, most of the people on the planet, and that means most of the people of color on the planet, have had religious practices or practices that reflect their thinking about and their understanding about the origin of the planet, the origin of life, and the force responsible for producing all of that, since the people didn't produce it themselves. And so that is where religion and philosophies about God and origin come from. It's as old as the people that are on the planet. Tens of thousands, millions of years. And so when white supremacy came along and realized that the majority of people on the planet are people of color, it occurred to them, we need to present these people with an image of God as ourselves. And so that was, one could say, A+ masterful thinking. If you want to subjugate people, then what you do is get deeply inside of their heads after you beat them and rape them and abuse them. Then as they're trying to heal themselves and recover, you give them an image and you say, this is God. See this picture? They don't have to say it looks just like me, but it looks just like them. Say, this is God. Now get down on your knees and worship it. If you don't, I'm going to beat you some more. And then I'm going to give you a book, and I'm going to say there's certain parts of the book I want you to focus on. Slave, obey your master. turn the other cheek. Engage in forgiveness, and you'll get your reward in heaven. So since people have a proclivity, especially if they feel vulnerable and enslaved people, you better believe they feel vulnerable. If they can be beaten and raped and sodomized at will, their children can be taken away from them and sold to other plantations. And so the people are in a complete state of vulnerability. And so somebody says, now this is God. Pray to this person to save you. Yes, it looks just like me, but this is who you are supposed to pray to and love and value and respect. See, that's why I say black women look at scandal, worshiping a white slave master, or black men looking at pornographic material, worshiping a white female. So again, it's, people who set out to control other people, and they're not playing loud music all the time. They're sitting and thinking, how do we subdue these people? How do we maintain their suppression? And how do we accomplish their genocide if we need to? And they don't have loud music banging. They're not jumping up and down, shaking their behinds. They're sitting and they're thinking. What do we need to do? What do we need to study? Now, we won't teach them the effectiveness of quiet when you're trying to think. We'll keep that a secret. So we'll give them loud music, have them bouncing around. When you see their little children at age 2 and 3, they're jumping up and down and bouncing and shaking their behinds as early as 2 years of age. We do this to them because we want to control them. We'll tell them that marijuana is medical. So they'll be smoking it in their homes around their children. So, in other words, it's people setting a goal. Now, whether somebody considers it just or not, they set a goal, they studied the conditions of the planet and the condition of the people, or they create the conditions of the people so that they can achieve that objective. And religion is critical, because when people are overwhelmed by earthly circumstance, they're looking up and they're reaching for something and they're reaching for answers. So you can train them to pray instead of study and think. I don't know if that answers your question.
I think that was pretty thorough, Dr. Welsing. Our caller, Thomas in New York, always good to hear from you. Did you have a question for Dr. Welsing? You should be with us.
Dr. Welsing.
I'm hearing echo. No speakerphone. Did you have
Good evening, Gus.
Can
you hear me?
Yes, sir. We can hear you.
Good evening, Dr. Welsing. It's nice to hear from you again.
Good evening. Mm-hmm.
I applaud you for your consistency. Every time I hear from you, you have the same anecdotes, and they're right on point as always. I had a question. I hear this used a lot by Gus and Dr. Fuller. I heard you use it before. Replace white supremacy with justice.
Yeah.
I've been thinking on that term or that phrase, and in my opinion, I was thinking, man, I don't think that I even want justice from white people. I mean, what would justice look like in a system of white supremacy?
What is justice? Justice can't exist in a system of white supremacy. Those terms are antithetical.
I got you.
So you have a system of white supremacy, and that means the victimization and the oppression of people of color. That's what this total system is about. And so to say that justice exists under those conditions, which is why black people's experience is that they don't get justice. Because they can't have justice in a system of white supremacy. Although they're lied to and told that they should expect it because they're told they're in a system of democracy, but that doesn't exist. So black people can decide that they want to replace a system of racism and white supremacy, a system of terror and injustice, with a system of justice.
Wow. Okay.
See, in other words, maybe
great.
you're thinking that you couldn't you don't want justice for white people because maybe you think that you're vulnerable to the white people. But think about a situation where, in other words, black people are trained to think about white people as God. Not to think about racism and white supremacy. And so black people are always looking for justice from people who can't practice justice. They're looking for equality. See, even the concept of black people asking for equality, where the system of racism and white supremacy is based on the fact that people who classify themselves as white feel that they are unequal genetically to black people, meaning they cannot produce color. Their genetics in terms of skin coloration are recessive. And so the whole system is based on their sense of inadequacy and inequality in terms of genetics. And yet black people, because black people haven't been taught to think scientifically at that level, so black people are asking for equality from people who themselves feel unequal and have had to set up a compensatory system of supremacy and superiority. So it's like having to go back to the drawing board and looking and thinking, wait a minute. It's just like walking in a circle. A year ago, there was Ferguson, and so let's march. Or Martin Luther King's assassination, let's march. Or let's go to the polls, because we're not thinking deeply enough about the problem to understand what the problem really is. Or even let's protest the police when the police are employed by a total system. So we need to understand the total system and talk about the total system. At least those who have the courage to do so, because there's a lot of pressure for black people to not look at the total system. So they'll always be walking in a circle. I don't know. Does that answer your question?
Oh, yes, it did. Yes, it did. And I have one more question if I could get it in.
Go ahead.
I recently just came back from the beach, and I noticed that genetic foundness that they have, in their tanning, and my thing is, and my question is, I would look at other black people as I would sit there, and they would look at them with a look of, it was like a hate but an admiration at the same time. It would just be like, it was just a glaze. You could see the hatred in their eyes, but at the same time,
wait a minute,
it's like,
now, who
man,
are you
I
talking?
wish.
I'm sorry. Wait a minute,
I'm talking about white people looking at other black. You know how you could just sit down and just look at white people and then see black people walk past them and see from a distance, while they're not paying any attention to you, you're seeing them and how they're responding to those black people with each other, how they're looking at them, and I just saw it's like a look of hatred and admiration at the same time. And do you think deep down that they truly admire us? Is that one of the causes for their hatred for us?
Well, see, look at the behavior. And this is one of the things when I first started thinking about racism, I thought about the fact that people who classify themselves as white taught black people they were ugly because they had color. But what do white people do in the summertime? Try to get color, is that right?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Yes. And as soon as the sun goes up, they go in.
White people are putting tattoos all over their body. So you see white people now with tattoos all over their arms, dark ink, black, blue, all over their bodies, all over their arms. Now, black people are sort of like monkey see, monkey do. They don't understand that the people who classify themselves as white are making themselves appear like they have some color because they don't like white. But as long as they can teach black people that the black people, are ugly, so that the black people worship white, then the white people can be comfortable. But if black people begin to like themselves, and some are, then the white people want to tan, and then they find out, well, I'll get skin cancer, well, then let me tattoo. Let me put some color on my white skin. But what black people want to be aware of is their level of self-hatred. You see, it's just like if you turn on the news and you see a black woman giving the news, she's got some hair she bought from Asian people, expressing, I hate myself. I've got to try to look like a white person. Now, yes, simultaneously you will see white people trying to put on sleeveless dresses, giving the news, and a lot of orange paint on their arms, trying to appear as though they have color. But the damaging thing is when we, as black people, don't understand black self-hatred. Because that's a very, very deep poison, and it is essential to upholding the system of racism and white supremacy. You see, I mean, if you think about all the basketball players and all the people who already have color. When white players are putting tattoos, they are trying to imitate the blacks. But the black people not understanding that their color is being admired. And so then they put tattoos all over themselves and make themselves look ridiculous. As opposed to, I like my black skin just the way it is. I don't have to think I'm better than anybody else, but I like myself. And I respect myself. See, that's what we have to begin to understand. There's an African proverb that says, monkey was so busy doing what everybody else was doing that one day, monkey cut his throat. See, monkey wasn't thinking, now what should I be doing? Okay, next.
Right on. Thank you, Thomas in New York. I think this is our caller in the Bay Area, 4869. 4869. Did you have a question for Dr. Welsing?
May I be heard?
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Sorry,
sir. Sorry about that, sir.
It's okay. Greetings, Gus and Dr. Frances Cress Welsing and the rest of the callers. I was calling because I need help the most in the entertainment area of activity because I'm starting high school at this school called Open School for the Arts. And throughout my music experience, I noticed that the majority of the people doing it are white, but the minority are black. So my question to you, Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, is, do you have any advice for me so I can stay codified through this area of activity?
LaVon, would you please repeat that? I've missed out on some of those words.
Let's see. Can you repeat it one more time? And then if you don't hear Dr. Welsing, I can relay it back just to make sure I'm clear. Go ahead. Can you give it to us one more time, sir?
Well, I need help the most in the entertainment area of activity because I'm starting high school at a school for the arts. And throughout my music experience, I noticed that the majority of people doing it are white, but the minority are black. So my question to you is, what advice do you have for me so that I can stay codified through this area of activity?
Got it. Okay. Did you hear that, Dr. Welsing?
No, the majority of people doing what? I missed that.
Okay. He said in his high school, playing music, he said that his experience, the majority of the people that are playing music at the high school level are white. He is a black male, and so he's asking if you have any suggestions that would help him function in that environment in a constructive manner.
Now, is he saying they will not let him play?
I don't think that's the issue. That's not it,
what
right?
What do you understand that he's saying?
The issue is not that they're not letting you play music, right, sir? It's just you want to make sure, or a sense of discomfort being a black person in this environment that is overwhelmingly white. Is that accurate, sir?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Yeah, it's not that they're not letting him play, Dr. Welsing. It's just that it's like he's one black person in a band or a music group that's got 20, 30 white people. And so he's feeling some discomfort about being, one of the few black people in this environment, and asking if you have any suggestions that can kind of help him function as a young black high school student.
Okay, so are there any other black students or black people in your area that are playing music?
Well, yes, there is.
Okay, is it possible that you could play with them if it's a matter of having experience? I mean, if you're in a class and most of the people at the school are white and the teacher is white and they want you to play certain music, I would say to you, play that music and get a good grade. Now, if they say, well, we don't play black music, or we don't play music that you might like, then you look into your community, talk to your parents. Are there any black groups that are playing music that I can play with, or are playing music that is appealing to me, different than what I have to play when I am in school? Does that make any sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay, well, see, try to find some people who are in your community, if they're black people playing music, just or even music schools, or black people teaching. See if you can find that. You see, but in the meantime, you learn how to play the music that they're going to give you the grade by. And then you go home and you play the music and create the music that you like to play, or play with people that you would like to play with. I hope that makes some sense.
Yes, it does. Thank you so much for answering my question. You are a really
You're
great role model, and I'm not mute my line.
See, let me just say this. When I was training in psychiatry, the white people who were training us, and there were 2 black psychiatrists in training at this group, in this program, they told us that black people did not have the intelligence to benefit from psychotherapy, and so that the best treatment for black people was medication. Now, maybe because my father was a physician and his father was a physician, I didn't accept that. And I knew that I was interested in solving the mental health problems that black people face, so I had to kind of on my own go in search of that. You see what I'm saying? But at the same time, I had to learn what they were teaching in the program. But that was not enough and sufficient. So I was doing, going beyond what they taught. So, you can do the same thing.
Did that
Okay.
answer your...
Okay.
Right on. Good to hear from you, young man. I was expecting your mother, but good to hear from you, young man. This is M1. M1, did you have a question for Dr. Welsing, M1?
Oh, yes. Hey, good evening, Dr. Welsing. I want to speak with you, good evening, Gus, and to the callers. Speaking of white terrorist Dylan Scott Roof, or Storm Roof, however you want to call him, by any chance, did you happen to see the tweet put out by the racist Timothy Wise on Dylan Scott Roof?
LeVon, can you repeat that for me?
He asked if you saw, I think Tim Wise made a tweet about Dylan Storm Roof, and he was asking if you saw it or heard about what he said.
No, I didn't. I don't know about that. What about that?
Okay. Oh, okay. He, in Tim's tweet, he has a picture of Dylan Scott Roof, and he says, look at where he holds his gun. And the gun is between his legs. And someone commented, what happened to the pseudoscientific BS? And I was just wondering whether you had seen that or not.
No, but did he answer that?
Not to my knowledge.
Well, I just think that that is interesting. But, my comment to what Tim Wise has to say is that I understand he called himself a racist. And so whatever negative things he might have said about me and my work would be what I would expect from someone who is racist. I just hope that black people are not being misled by him in any way.
Okay, thank you. Someone else can speak.
Cool in the gang. Caller at 6353. 6353. Did you have a question for Dr. Welsing?
Okay, so Dr. Welsing, thank you very much. I hold you in high regard. I love my daughter, and she's brilliant, and she's been well raised, comes from a good family, two-parent, on her way to medical school. And recently, she's been supported by me and my husband all her life. Recently came to me, and I had asked her about her social interactions, who she hangs out with. And she came to me recently and asked me to have a seat, that she wanted to talk to me. And I sat down, and she said, you've been asking me about my social interactions, and I really have been avoiding telling you. I know you won't like it, but I am dating. It is serious, and it's a white male. I was silent for what had to be about 45 seconds just looking at her. And finally she said, I tried to find black males to interact with. I could not find one I liked that was serious about his future. And she asked me, what do you think? I said to her, you already know what I think, but I'll repeat it. I'm 100% opposed to you having such relationships with white people, as I am with all black people having those type of relationships with black people. I say, these are the people we are at war with. You know I cannot accept such an arrangement. If it continues, I believe it will negatively affect our relationship. But more than that, I think you're in danger. So that's the gist of the conversation, Dr. Welsing. I don't want to hurt or harm my daughter. I like for us to continue to have a relationship, but I'm very harmed by the understanding, and I'm not really comfortable at all. I've lost a lot of sleep over it, and she's on her way to medical school, and it's like he just came in and plucked her out. But my question is, what do you suggest, number one? If I have to lose the relationship with my daughter, that's probably going to be my decision rather than have this person coming around me be in my life. And number two, I have a lot of black love and black self-respect for myself, and I've had opportunities to date white males, and I have not done it. She knows that. And does this mean that she does not have black love and black self-respect? So 2 questions.
Well, see, one thing is, I don't know what your early school experience was. If you as a parent were in school from an early age with white children, or were you exposed to whites later? See, this is, I'm sorry, go ahead.
She was raised, she came to a predominantly white neighborhood because of my husband's job, and she was predominantly raised with them in high school and and on there.
Right. See, now,
were
you raised in a predominantly white community?
And yes, I wasn't, but
you were not.
I was not. But my husband's job did move to a predominantly white community, and she was very young when it happened, and so she went to predominantly white schools. I tried to teach her, even though that was the situation, though. But go ahead.
Right. Well, see, in other words, there are a number of black parents who are experiencing the anguish that you are experiencing. And for the most part, black parents did not experience as very young children. See, it's like CNN had a program with Anderson Cooper about when did children learn about race. And white children as early as 2 and 3 years of age understand race because they are taught race. And they are taught to demean black children. And so black parents did not understand this. Black parents were thinking they want to have their children exposed to a good education. And so they want their children to go to the best schools. And the best schools are in predominantly white communities. And so the black child is placed in that setting. And so can you imagine I see children who went to mixed schools where there were 1 or 2 blacks from the time they're 2 years of age. And those children are mistreated by white children because the white children's parents teach their children racism. And so the black child is put in a vulnerable situation hoping to be liked. They can't come home and talk to their parents about it when they're very young children. They wouldn't even know what to say.
My God.
But they are hoping to be liked by the white children. Do you understand what I'm saying? And
yes,
so that becomes a part of their makeup. And so parents have to, I wouldn't want you to break your relationship with your daughter. I would want you to say, wow, we put you in that school.
Lord,
we had no idea about the impact that it was going to have on you. See, because simultaneously what is happening in the culture is that black children are being taught by the stuff they listen to in the so-called rap, what I call trash rap, where the black children are being programmed. They don't want to relate to anybody black. I had children in my office a couple of weeks ago, a male and a female, 14 and 12. We don't like black. No, I don't like black. I was at Florida A&M not long ago, and the black students, female student said, the black male said, you need to get with a white boy because you're too dark for us to date. So we've got massive racial sickness going on. Do you see what I'm saying? And so it might be black males who don't want to date your daughter because they would prefer to date a white girl. So all of this is going on. So my thought would be, and just take this as somebody talking to you over the internet. You're not sitting down in my office. And so this is just a surface kind of discussion.
Yes, ma'am.
I would just say, wow, we didn't understand.
Mm-hmm.
You see, that we pray that you will find a black person as you move forward, that you will find a black person that you can love and respect. This is our desire, but you didn't place yourself in those schools. We had no idea what the outcome might be, but we did place you there. But do you understand what I'm saying? So that the black parent is in a dilemma. See, it's one thing for the parent to teach something at home and for the child to be at school experiencing something else.
Yes, ma'am.
That they can't come home and talk to the parents about. I mean, I've seen cases where the parents are so anxious for the child to get along in this better community and in this better school that they don't want to think about race. And so the child can't have any guidance, but the white child is getting sun up, sun down discussion in their home about race. A white female professor at American University, I'd been invited to talk at a prison, black prisoners, and I talked to them about racism. But this white female professor was one of the people responsible for this program for these incarcerated black men. So I talked about racism to the prisoners, and so this white female professor was driving me home, and she simply said, Dr. Welsing, I hate to say this, but on all social occasions, when it's just white people present, we are talking negatively about black people. She said, on all social occasions. And she said the assumption is that everybody present is in agreement. And I tell people I didn't jump out of the car and get mad. I told her I understood. I said, you all are talking code about the maintenance of racism, white supremacy, which necessitates negative discussion about black people 24/7. And so this is what white children are exposed to in their homes. This is the way that the system and culture for white genetic survival is conditioned and maintained. Just like if you grow up in a home and you speak English, that's what they learn. See, black people don't want to talk about race. And white people have to talk about race for their survival. Black people have been educated, what religious think, Bible think. Everybody's the same. We're all the same under the skin. That's what black people want to believe. That's why we are as far behind as we are, because we're not in touch with reality. We don't want to think about reality, but it's understandable given our historic experience, et cetera, but that's just where things are. So those white children that your child, if you think about how many black children were in class with your daughter when she was 5 and 4 and 3, probably 1 or 2 or none.
That's correct.
You see, so it's like, I would say, have sympathy.
Yes,
see, for a little child and that experience, see, those little black children in those situations, they can raise their hand. Hello?
We can hear you.
Yeah, I'm just hurting, doctor, because I think that I have been unbeknownst to myself. So I have
That's
to...
okay. See, embrace yourself.
Yes, ma'am.
Embrace yourself. You didn't know, you didn't understand. Like, I've had patients who were some of the first children to go to integrated schools. One patient's head was pushed into a commode with feces. Even though this person became an outstanding professional person. When they junior high school, this is one of the first to integrate a Southern school, and the child's head was pushed into a commode with feces and not allowed to go home and wash or change her clothes. So that as an adult, still crying about the memory. See, black parents are thinking they have the best schools. We want our children exposed to good schools. And the parents had no idea of what the children would have to confront. So, just say, well, what we have in our heart is for you to have a black mate. But it's a lot of stuff that, we didn't really understand.
Dr. Welsing, that is the most profound thing. And I'm forever
Well, I
grateful.
hope that it helps. Do you see
It
what
does.
I'm saying? But I just got through talking to somebody, approached me with, they had a friend. This is a man talking about his male friend who is completely broken up because his daughter wants to marry a white guy. Just beside himself with grief. And so, there has to be understanding when you look at the children. Like, for example, Tiger Woods. What I read, one of his early experience being, like, even though he calls himself Cabal-Asians, white people look at him and say black man. And when he was a child, he was tied up to a tree by some white children. Now, that had to be kind of terrifying, right?
Yes.
And so once the white people started showing disdain for him when he was with those white women, like Bill Cosby, and so they kind of turned against him, I think that has a lot to do with why he hasn't been able to be successful. Because unbeknownst to him, there was conditioning about white approval. As long as he was a little baby playing golf and the white people were clapping and all of that. But then when they found out these white women were chasing him and they turned on him and he hasn't been able to play golf. Now, that's Frances Welsing's analysis.
I
wish he would come to me and talk about race, right? But so, in other words, I feel your pain.
Yes, ma'am.
I feel your pain and your grief. But, give yourselves understanding in terms of what you thought was going to be the outcome, but not knowing. And you, along with hundreds of others. Like, I had a child, a beautiful little black boy years ago, and he was in a predominantly white school. His father died, and the mother brought him to talk to me about his father's death and the impact. And this little child, he was brilliant, little boy. He said, Dr. Welsing, that's okay about my father. I want you to tell me about how to get a girlfriend. And he was talking about liking his young white teacher.
Mm-hmm.
Now, years later, grown up, going to college, going to Harvard University. And after all those years, the mother came to see me, just to say hi to the doctor. And she was showing me, I said, he's going to Harvard. I said, the white girls will eat him up. And I said, he's going to have to be really careful. And the mother pulled out a picture, said, just wait, Dr. Welsing, and showed me this young man and the young woman he was taken to the prom. And it was a white girl.
Mm-hmm.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
I almost went down the wrong road with this, Dr. Welsing. I'm so grateful. God bless you.
Well, embrace yourself. You know what I'm saying? Embrace yourself and say, this is fascinating, this is interesting. Do you see it? Like Neely Fuller, he says, you call him up and say, how are you? He said, I'm still learning.
Mercy.
Do you see it? We're still learning about the nuances of a system And we just have to decide that, we're going to learn as much as we can about the system, but we're going to go forward and value and respect ourselves.
Absolutely.
And, tell your daughter, value and respect yourself second to none.
Thank you. Oh, my. Whew.
Definitely appreciate that. I'm sure some other folks benefit. Before I get the next caller, just a reminder, the Little Rock Nine, right? The young black students that quote-unquote integrated Central High in Little Rock, Arkansas in 1957.
Yes.
4 of the 9 ended up marrying white people. 4 of the 9. And the horrors that they experienced are they're well documented. Their books, films, it's well documented.
See, that's what our slave experience was. In other words, when black people were given Christianity and the image of God as white, where we were being beaten and raped and captured and killed 24/7. And so the people came out with needing to love an image of God as white. Love the image of the oppressor, hoping that they will be treated kindly. And see, that's what happened to the black people in Charleston, South Carolina. Like, black people want to believe contrary to the evidence, wanting to believe that white people love them. And so this young man was able to go into that church and sit with those black people in a prayer meeting and sit with that black minister who was also a state senator. And while they are, oh, this is wonderful, this white young man has come amongst us. And he got up and pulled out a gun and started killing them. See, we want to believe. And that's why my mental health advice to black people is to adopt the stance of you're not hating anybody, but non-forgiveness. See, when people are deliberately oppressing you, you don't jump up and say, I forgive. I mean, that's all the slave could do. That's all powerless people can do, because they can't do anything else. But to begin to consciously take the stand of no forgiveness. See, consideration for forgiveness will be done when the system of racism, white supremacy, has been completely replaced, local, nationally, globally, by a system of justice. And any white people who say they're not racist, then their job, they don't have to march any place with black people. Their job is to go out and stop the ones who are, by whatever means necessary. But in the meantime, black people will just take note of the harm done to black people every single instance, and they are not going to forgive until the system of racism, white supremacy has come to a complete end. They are not going to forgive, and they are not going to forget. And in the meantime, take upon themselves using their self-respect, knowledge and self-respect, knowledge of racism, white supremacy, respect for themselves as black people, practicing the behaviors that reflect that they respect themselves. That means no stealing from one another, no robbing one another, no fighting one another, no killing one another, no throwing down trash where black people live, work, and play. Stop making black children think that as children they can be adequate mothers and fathers. Those are the behaviors of counter-racism. But forgiveness is out. Now, I know there'll be a lot of discussion about that. Forgiveness is out until justice rains down like a mighty stream.
Ashe. Hear, 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 hear. Forgiveness is out until justice. Amen. The caller from a blocked number, person from a blocked number, did you have a question for Dr. Welsing?
Hello, can I be heard?
If you could speak up, that would be helpful.
Can I be heard?
Oh, that's worse. It got lower. That got worse than before.
Can I be heard now?
Yes, yes.
Let's see. Can I be heard now?
I could hear you before. It just got worse. I could hear you.
Okay.
Yes, that is great.
Okay.
Right there. I can hear you. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. Hello, Dr. Welsing. It's good to have you on the program again. I'd like to ask you a couple of questions.
One at a time, please.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Do you believe that white people are inherently evil, or do you think they just behave that way because of their fear of genetic annihilation?
Okay, let me just say again, I think that terms evil and hate, let's put those terms aside because they're not telling us anything. That people who classify themselves as white worked out a system for their genetic survival on planet Earth. They're a tiny minority of people. They are genetic recessive. And so they have to kill. They have to dominate and kill in order to survive. And so when people use a term like evil, that's just putting it in the mystical world where one can't understand it. Keep it down at a level where you can think clearly about it and understand. Their behavior is essential for their survival on the planet, given their conditions. And so the behaviors are terroristic and they are unjust. And so black people have to specifically understand what they do, why they do what they do, and decide what moves are necessary to counter. See, white people are fewer than 1/10 of the people on the planet. And white people have said to me, how is it that as 1/10 we can control the 9/10? And I say simply because you taught the 9/10 to hate themselves and to love you. So the minute the 9/10 decide that they are going to respect and value and love themselves, racism, white supremacy collapses. But it can't be fake.
So until they are eliminated, justice will not be...
That's not what I said.
I know, but that's what it sounds like, because they are bad.
No. In other words, if you have 10 friends, 10 people come to your house and socialize, one of those persons is a thief. So every time there's a gathering, something is missing. Somebody's wallet is missing. Nobody knows who the thief is. But everybody is nervous because what's going to be stolen from whom next? The minute the thief is identified, they don't even have to tell the thief not to come. All eyes are on the thief. So the thief can't move. See, right now, black people, just take us as black people. Black people can't even talk about racism. So they certainly don't know the moves and behaviors that the system of racism engages in. They don't understand that every time a black person kills another black person, they're holding up racism, white supremacy. Every time a black person is discourteous and disrespectful to another black person, they are upholding racism, white supremacy, as opposed to being courteous and being respectful. Because that strengthens the bonds between black people. When one black person is courteous, helpful, and respectful to another black person. See, I'm sure everybody has been in a situation, you go up to a store clerk who's black. They don't even say, how can I help you? A white person is behind you, and the black person says, yes, hi, how can I help you? So there's great power in individual behavior when people understand what behavior they seek to engage in. So white people can just be surrounded by the knowledge, which is why white people don't want racism discussed. Because the more knowledgeable and sophisticated black people become about what racism, white supremacy is and how it works, then it can't work anymore because they are knowledgeable. Just being aware. It's just like if you realize that you go to a particular butcher store, if they have butcher stores anymore, but go to a place where they sell meat, and you are given tarnished meat. And when you don't go there anymore, it's just like what black people are talking about, blacking out the holidays. If black people, in other words, enough carnage has been done to black people in the last 12 months. All of the black people who have been killed, and so black people say it's going to be no turkey buying, no buying of dressing, no buying of cranberry sauce, no Christmas tree purchasing, no Christmas shopping. Very sorry. The system of racism, white supremacy, doesn't seem to think that black people are serious about justice.
Okay.
Does that make any sense to you?
Yes, it does. But something else I wanted to ask, if that's okay.
Go ahead.
I know you say dealing with racism is like playing chess. When you don't hate your opponent, you just try to beat your opponent. It's human nature to hate people that constantly mistreat you. It's not something that you think about or something that you have to speculate about. I mean, that's just normal behavior for people to...
Wait, let me just say this. Wait a minute. In other words, it's behavior that people engage in when they feel weak and vulnerable. If you know what to do about the specific behavior. See, as long as you don't understand why the person is doing what they're doing, and so you feel helpless. Helpless engenders hate. But if you begin to understand, I know exactly what the person did, why they did it. And so this is what I'm going to do about it. First of all, I'm going to identify it. I'm going to call it racism, white supremacy. I know what its objectives are. Its objectives are white genetic survival and preventing white genetic annihilation, because the white population is a tiny minority genetic recessive population on planet Earth. I understand why they feel the necessity to kill black men specifically, and to make it impossible for black men to function as husbands and fathers if they don't have jobs. Now, I'm not going to be silent about racism, white supremacy. I'm going to talk about it. I can talk about it calmly and appropriately. And I can try to help other black people that I mingle with and associate with, help them understand, like the African proverb that says, each one teach one. If you learn something constructive, share it with someone else, so that we end up basically having an underground, overground, passing information about racism, white supremacy, passing it on until everybody understands. Just like black people can have a dance, a new dance step will go from New York to California in 3 days, because black people put their arms around each other and teach the latest dance step. And then they'll say, but how can we help people understand racism and white supremacy? By being committed. There's nothing more important. Racism and white supremacy is killing black people.
I'm talking about self-survival. That's what I'm talking about, self-survival. If someone is trying to keep you from living, you're going to do everything you can to survive and to kill that person that's trying to kill you. And ultimately, that results in hate. That's just a natural reflex.
No, it's not. I mean, it can be a learned reflex if nothing else is taught. See, it's just like somebody who doesn't know how air conditioning works or how a furnace works, and so they open the windows. And so that heat energy is going out the window, because they didn't know really how to help the house stay warm or stay cool. See, so if a person, and somebody can say, I insist upon hating. I'm just going to be burning myself up with hatred, as opposed to, I'm going to be as calm and cool-headed as I can be. See, all of that emotion of hatred towards people who classify themselves as white, because you're not going to slap a white person. So you got all of that painful energy when you go home. And it'll control how you talk to the people in your house, how you talk to your children, how you talk to the people in your immediate surrounds. You see, but if you begin to say, I know what this is all about, I'm beginning to understand racism, white supremacy, what it is and how it works. In 500 years, we haven't understood in the depth that we can understand it now. So this is what I'm going to be doing.
Let's see. I believe I can hate and have a cooler head. I love my children, and me and my children, we speak to each other with love. We know that there's love in our home, but I do totally despise and hate white people. And I respect your opinions and everything, but I'm sorry, I just have to disagree with you on that one. And that's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Okay, well, maybe you'll write a treatise on how hate helped me. in other words, we have a difference of opinion, but if you reflect on that and you decide, I really believe that hate is important, and so I'm going to write about it. Share it with Dr. Welsing. So that would just be my thought.
Right on.
Thank you, Dr. Welsing.
You're welcome.
I know it's 10 p.m. If you need to,
time flies.
I know. If you need to go, that is totally cool. We appreciate you sharing your time with us. There were a couple other folks who had a hand up, but I know you are super busy.
Okay, we'll finish those two. I'll stay with you.
Okay, well, we'll get.
If you want to do that.
Okay, again, if you need to rest or if you need to go, it's all cool. The person at 7947, did you have a quick question for Dr. Welsing?
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good evening, Dr. Welsing. I know that white supremacy does exist because, again, until I turned to the Cal station, I've never heard of you. I listened to you once before on a Cal station, and that's the first time I ever heard of you, ma'am. So I know they are trying to suppress voices that truly, truly want to really help us. The question I have for you is just a question based on some information you just gave to not the caller just asked a question, but the previous caller. You talked about sending children, she talked about sending a child to an all-white environment, and then, the child to date I'm sorry, my phone is acting a little crazy, want to date a white person or marry a white person. What would you suggest if someone says, well, if they still want to send their child to that white school, what would you suggest to them if they still want to do it regardless? Would you tell them to read, give that child something to read? Would you give them alternatives? But they just say, okay, this is the best possible school, and I know he or she would do very well here, and nothing can beat the school she has to, I just really feel that this is where I want my child to be. What advice would you give to that person who feels that maybe they may not turn out to be that way?
Well, that's a little bit difficult to say because it really depends on what exactly the child is experiencing. But I would, I think the most important thing that a parent can say that if anyone hurts your feelings, if anyone mistreats you in any way, I want you to come home and tell me. And what I will be doing is I will be visiting the school myself on a regular basis and observing as an adult. I'm going to observe and see exactly how you are treated. I'm going to monitor how you are graded. And when you are deserving of the best grades, I'm going to see that you are given the grades that you deserve. But I will be an ever-present person in your school. And I will be at all of the PTA meetings, and I will see the kinds of things that are discussed and the kinds of things that parents talk about. I will be present at the plays and the different kinds of performances to see where is my child placed. Now, sometimes children will say to the black parent, I don't want you coming up to school because they start attacking me more. Then you know exactly what situation your child is in. Does that answer in any way?
Yes. Just one follow real quickly. So what would you suggest if a person, if they don't, would you suggest really, ma'am, just not putting them in that school period, just different, maybe homeschooling? Because the woman who talked about she was in a situation because of a move. So I'm thinking that that's the only alternative she really had to really deal with. So I'm just thinking, could they be more books, like African American books, maybe have them in African American groups, or find some type of outlet outside the school, ma'am?
Well, certainly, it's like all of those things are possible. Do you see where the parent is saying, these are the things that I want you to know about black people? You know, or, you know, we read in our home and make certain that our children know and understand. And we talk about racism. You see, we don't tell them they have to spend time, energy hating people. But they do have to report if they are being mistreated in any way. And we as parents will take care of it. You see, the black parent is in a problematic situation because many of the schools that are predominantly black may not be well-performing schools. So, you know, let's say if black people are in a community and the schools are not up to par, then what are they doing to try to help those schools in the place where they live become up to par, as opposed to it's only up to somebody else to do it? See, this is the importance of understanding racism, white supremacy, that it is working against the interests of black people in many ways, and black people have to determine that they are going to be committed to doing something about racism, white supremacy, not ignoring it, wishing Dr. Frances Welsing would stop talking about race. You know what I hear a lot of, that this is a reality. So anything that is going to help give your child validation, it might be in church, with all the things that I've said of religion, but it might be in the church if the church is doing something that is constructive, or any groups, or any parent groups, or any children groups where they are focusing on helping black children have confidence in themselves and believe in themselves, and encouraging them to achieve, and getting rid of the concept that to study hard is acting white. The corollary being dumb is what black people are all about.
Right on. Last caller, 8179. 8179. I think it's one of our callers in the Detroit area. I don't know if she was at the conference that you were recently attending, but she's in the same neck of the woods. Did you have a question for Dr. Welsing?
Good evening, Gus and Dr. Welsing. And yes, I did attend when Dr. Welsing was at C3. But I apologize for putting my hand up so late, but I had a question. Dr. Welsing, you said that there is great power in individual behavior, and I know that I've just been reared to look to leaders and individual people, whether it's in the church or in the mosque, and one, organization to give some sort of direction. But I just wanted you to speak more on that point that you made, because it really struck a chord with me when you said there's great power in individual behavior, and that, I think, is one of the strong keys that'll help us replace, this system with justice, because, we underestimate that. We underestimate the little things that we can do just, as we're going to work and as we're interacting with, white people just in our environment, the things that we wanted you to speak a little more on that. Thanks for taking my call.
Well, you see, the system of racism, white supremacy is 24/7 stress on black people. And then not only the system tries to give this models of behavior to black people, or rewarding patterns of behavior by calling certain people stars, and say that they're making millions of dollars, but their behavior is non-constructive. And so the system gains if black people's behavior is destructive to themselves, destructive towards one another. That's a part of understanding what racism is all about. So when black people decide that in their role as, every black person, in my view, should think of themselves as a leader because they are leading themselves. And if they say, I'm going to make my behavior specifically impeccable, contrary to where the system of racism, white supremacy wants me to be, impeccable in relationship to my self-respect and my respect of other black people. And I will also be contributing to my mental health because I'm totally conscious that I am shaping my behavior so as to counter the thrust of racism, white supremacy. And so I consciously practice not name-calling another black person, gossiping about another black person, not cursing another black person, not snitching on another black person for reasons of personal gain. And that's very important on the job. A lot of job situations where you have black people in it and you've got one black person or two running to tell the white person what a black person, they just bought a new car. They just got a house. That's a signal for the black person to not be promoted into their raise. All that kind of destructive behavior. Stop being discourteous. Stop being disrespectful to one another. Stop stealing from one another. Stop robbing one another. Stop fighting one another. And stop killing. So just imagine, we keep talking about black on black crime. What if black people were all talking about codification, counter racism, and black self-respect and black mental health? And one of those codes is to stop killing one another. So you have a critical mass of older black people that are talking about that and talking about that to younger black people and helping them understand the context in which that kind of discussion applies. Because they have the rap songs. I mean, people need to listen to some of this trash that is psychological warfare, that the system of white supremacy is paying these so-called artists to create this trash and to brainwash black people with all of this disgusting lyrics and language about killing and hurting one another. Niggers and bitches and hoes and gangsters. So this is not just some kind of idle entertainment. This is psychological warfare for the continuing destruction of black people. So these are behaviors that individual people can think about. I think I'm going to start, black people just nodded with courtesy towards each other when they passed on the street. Just nod, I recognize you, and how do you do? Courtesy in serving. Let me give this black person the best service that I can. Not stand at a counter and have a black person who's behind the counter continue to look down and you wait and wait and wait for them to look up. And have the person look up and roll their eyes at you instead of saying, yes, may I help you?
Phenomenal. Dr. Frances Cress Welsing. Before you exited, I had mentioned before about the white teenager that was shot and killed, Zachary Hammond, where they've had all these articles saying that, he hasn't gotten adequate attention because he's white. We only pay attention if the police kill a black person. The photograph that they have of Zachary Hammond, it's this teenage white boy and he's next to, you've seen the like 3D models of what a strand of DNA looks like. So you can see him next to this model. So he's like a young scientist, who knows, future doctor or engineer, who knows what he could have been. And if you just contrast that with the photographs that they typically show when it's a black person, and they normally find the most menacing photograph they can possibly find.
Right,
like,
exactly.
It is an amazing contrast, just the photographs that they chose alone. But
well, people should call the television station. Call CNN if it's on CNN, or call one of the other stations and say, well, I noticed that it's a very nice photo of the young white man that was killed. No menacing, looking like he's the worst person in the world. And so I want you to, talking to the station, I want you to think about that when you start putting up pictures of black males. You see, and, how is this young man doing in school? What is his factor? Has he been absent from school? Has he gotten into any other difficulty? Are you going to play that up like you do when it's a black male? And you just say to the station, I want to caution you about disparity in presentation in the system of racism, white supremacy.
Absolutely. That's one thing you can do that would not require a leader. That's one thing you could do on your own. I'm going to write something myself, because that just was amazing, because that became a whole topic of discussion, I think about this time last year, the images that they chose of Michael Brown, and people saying, hey, why did you deliberately try to go find like a photo where he looks mean and is not fun? Like, are you doing this deliberately when it's a black person? And if you look at the photograph of Zachary Hammond, it is, next to a strand of DNA. Like, what a loss. It has been a supreme pleasure to have you on the program. I hope folks learned a lot, took notes, and you repeated it again. Reading is more important than watching television. You can start with the ISIS papers if you haven't read that. Thank you so much for sharing a bit of your Sunday evening. It has really been a pleasure, and we will look forward to hearing from you again real soon, Dr. Welsing. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me, and I commend you for having this kind of forum where people can talk and exchange views about important things to black people. So thank you very much.
Absolutely. Take excellent care of yourself. We will definitely look forward to hearing from you again, and just hope that you can continue your outstanding work, Dr. Welsing. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you. Good night now.
Good evening. Good evening. Context of white supremacy. 29th time with Dr. Welsing on the program. 29th time. Always great to have her on the program. She actually touched on a lot of the topics that I was going to question or ask about. She picked them up without even me having to interject, which was great. And she had some great exchanges with some of the listeners. Appreciate all the folks who were able to dial in and get their questions asked. We should be back. In fact, we should have Enola Aird back on the program. She was with us before. She also does a lot of work around black mental health issues. Dr. Welsing spent some time talking about that today and the importance of black self-respect. Enola Aird does a lot of work around that too. I'm really excited to have her back on to hear her take on some of these incidents of these strange deaths of black females in custody, and just the overall trauma and overall state of black mental health or lack thereof with all of these really ugly events that have been happening and just the daily horrors of white supremacy. But she should be on soon, perhaps this week, just trying to get final day set up. As I said, we should be back next Sunday. That's our once a month early program, 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 noon Eastern. next Sunday. We should be here again, encouraging folks who are outside the states, give them opportunity to participate, and even folks who are in the states. If you just are not able to participate during the normal time that we're on, this is an early broadcast. I know a lot of people don't have to work on Sunday. It's supposed to be the day that is reserved for white Jesus. But next Sunday, 12 noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. And for folks who I at least know for London time, that would be 5 p.m. London time next Sunday. We'll be on, so feel free, chime in. We have a significant number of folks who listen outside the States. This is a world system. Investors, folks who listen in, email, tweet on a regular basis, who are all over the globe. So definitely tune in next Sunday. It'd be great to hear from folks. That would be Sunday, August 16th. Fundraising for the summer of 2015. Invest. The blog, racism-notes.blogspot.com. racism-notes.blogspot.com. Listener-supported counter-racist radio. The PayPal button is in the top right corner. If you are not into PayPal, drop me an email and we can get you a physical mailing address if you would like to support the program. Huge thanks to all the folks who have invested down through the years. It really has helped us to stay on the air and hopefully provide constructive content that has helped folks become a little bit less confused about what racism is, how it works, and things that we can do to scientifically oppose white supremacy. That's it. We will be back. Just check Black Talk Radio Network and the Facebook pages. We'll post. We should be back within a couple days. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and glad we were able to hear from Dr. Welsing once again. Remain codified. I know it's summertime and folks want to be out having a good time. Buckle your seatbelt. That is one easy thing you can do to work against racism. You do not want to give enforcement officials an easy excuse to pull you over and terrorize you. Just buckle your seatbelt. I've talked to too many victims of racism who have wasted a lot of money and time and had unnecessary contact with enforcement officials. That all was instigated because they weren't wearing a seatbelt. Buckle your seatbelt. Very easy. And the alcohol, again, sobriety would be best under conditions of white terrorism. If we can't do sobriety, at least be codified. Certainly you do not want to be in the presence of white people who are under the influence. That is extremely dangerous. You also want to be mindful if you are in the presence of other non-white people, if they're under the influence. It's too many examples of when, because of alcohol or other intoxicants, we just don't make the best decisions and frequently get into a lot of trouble, have a lot of problems that could be easily avoided if we were sober. Just something to think about. Sobriety would be best under conditions of white terrorism, but if we can't do that, at least be codified. With that, Creator, we ask that you help us remain patient with other black people, victims of white supremacy. We ask that you help us remain patient with ourselves. Remind us to demonstrate the highest levels of black self-respect at all times, in all places, each and every time we are in contact with another black person. Black self-respect is more powerful than a nuclear weapon. Context of White Supremacy signing out. Thanks all for tuning in.
Nigga, you so brainwashed. I'm a victim, brother. Problem. You're a victim. I'm a victim of 400 years of conditioning. Shut up. The man has programmed my conditioning. Even my conditioning has been conditioned.